Hello, my name is Oyinkansola or Olayinka, or I prefer to go by Ola, and the name of my website topic that I chose was the Bone Wars. It's a rivalry between Alternative Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope. So my website is divided into different pages, and it's there's an home page which just has the hero and a call to action button that takes you to the about page, which goes in more details about the Bone Wars, and then there's also a geologist page which has information about each geologist involved in the Bone Wars, and then there's an outcome page which talks about the outcome from the Bone Wars, and then I have the references, which has references of all the resources that I got my information from. So starting on with the home page, which I just talked about, there's a call to action button that takes you to the about page, and the about page is more details, and I'm gonna read through that. So the Bone Wars was a 19th century rivalry that shaped paleontology. It was between Alternative Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope that heavily involved geology as they competed to find dinosaur fossils in the western United States. This rivalry was centered on locating rich fossils beds such as the Morrison Formation at sites like the Como Bluff, Wyoming, where they competed to uncover significant finds. The geological formation provided the context for these discoveries, while their intense competition had some consequences and led to destructive and unethical practices that damaged fossils and the integrity of scientific integrity. Despite the controversy, the competition propelled dinosaur paleontology into the public eye and resulted in an unprecedented number of discoveries that transformed our current understanding of prehistoric life. So I also have a very short card which has a brief explanation of the geological content, the western frontier, the scientific impact of the rivalry between Cope and Marsh. And I also included a very short timeline, which in the 1860s, Cope and Marsh met, and they were initially friends before anything about being rivals occurred. And the friendship in the 1870s, the friendship kind of transformed into something more competitive when the discovery of fossils in the American West started. And then in the 1877, the discovery of the Como Bluff, Wyoming escalated their rivalry to different levels. And then in the 1890s, both men faced financial ruins and damaged reputations from their work as in the paleontology field. So moving on to the geologist page, we have Edward Drinker Cope. It was a paleontologist, herpetologist, comparative anatomist. Edward Drinker Cope was born into a wealthy Quaker family in Philadelphia in 1840. It was a child prodigy. He demonstrated exceptional talent for natural sciences from an early age. He published his first scientific paper at 17 years old. He was a self-taught, never complaining. He never completed a formal university degree, but he became one of the most prolific naturalists in American history. His work spans different disciplines like herpetology, ichthyology, and paleontology. He is known for his brilliant mind and photographic memory. Cope could recall a vast amount of atomic detail. Its competitive nature led to conflicts with other scientists, most notably with Charles Marsh. One of his major discoveries is the Camarasaurus, which is first described in 1877. Coelophysis, a small theropod dinosaur. Dimetrodon, a sail-backed snapis. Numerous of extinct fish, reptile, and amphibian species was also discovered by him. His scientific approach was he was someone who worked quickly, sometimes sacrificing accuracy for speed, and he published prolifically, often without peer review. He relied heavily on his personal fortune to fund expeditions, and he died in poverty after spending most of his funds on research. His legacy. Despite the controversies surrounding his methods and his rivalry with Marsh, Cope made immense contribution to paleontology and natural history. His collection of over 13,000 specimens formed the foundation of the vertebrate paleontology collection at the American Museum of Natural History. Cope's theory of gonatogenesis and his work on the Neo-Lamarckism, while ultimately disproven, stimulated important scientific debates about evolution. His output and passionate dedication to science continue to inspire other paleontologists today. And the next geologist that I will be talking about is Lieutenant Charles Marsh. He's a paleontologist, professor, and a scientific administrator. So Marsh was born in 1831 in Lockport, New York. Unlike his rival, Marsh received a formal education. He graduated from Yale College in 1860 and later studied paleontology in Europe. In 1866, Marsh became the first professor of paleontology in the United States at Yale University. With financial support from his family, like his uncle, the Peabody Museum of Natural History was established at Yale, which gave Marsh an institutional base that provided crucial during the Bone Wars. Marsh methodological and strategy, using his institutional resources and political connections to great effect. He employed teams of fossil collectors and maintained a network of informants across the American West. And major discoveries of Marsh was that he discovered the Triceratops, the iconic horned dinosaur, and the Stegosaurus, Allosaurus, Apatosaurus, Brontosaurus, and his scientific approach was more systematic and methodical in his research methods. He leveraged institutional resources and government funding. He employed large teams of professional fossil collectors and used political influence to secure access to fossil sites. So, what was the outcome of the Bone Wars? The good outcome was that over 142 species of dinosaurs and prehistoric creatures were discovered, including iconic animals like Triceratops, Stegosaurus, and Allosaurus, which expanded human knowledge of prehistoric life. And the rivalry captured public imagination and brought paleontology into the mainstream, and newspaper covered their discoveries, which sparked interest in dinosaur and prehistoric life. Some of the bad things that came out from this rivalry was that there was a lot of fossil destructions, and their aims to outpace each other. Both men destroyed some valuable fossils in the process. They would sometimes dynamite sites to prevent competitors from accessing them, causing irreparable damage to irreplaceable specimens. There were some scientific errors from rushed publications, which led to mistakes, and species were incorrectly identified, which the same animals were either given multiple names or given wrong names. Also, some unethical practices was an outcome of this. Both scientists engaged in bribery and theft. They hired people, which led to like some unethical practices and also personal ruin. Both men had their personal fortunes on the rivalry. Cope died in poverty, and Marsh faced a lot of financial difficulties. And this also led to their damaged reputation. The bitter rivalry between them damaged their reputation in the public and also their credibility of paleontology and scientific discourse. So my references of this, most of the places that I got my references are articles and books and publications. I used a lot of Britannica editors for the bios of the geologist, and I used a publication book which kind of like talked more about the Cope and Marsh and like how their impact and what they did, and I sourced them on where they were used in the site as well. So that pretty much concludes my explanation of my website on the Bone Wars.